So if I'm thinking like an old school movie where you've got a cowboy and he goes in and he's like robbing a bank, he can only take away what he can physically carry. In fact, that's kind of the component in a lot of these movies with bank heists and stuff, is like the physical weight of the money is actually a challenge, and they have to like, kind of balance the risk of getting caught and the weight, speed, all those things, right? So it's really like an entire action-packed scenario. But what you're saying is, like, in this type of a scenario, they can shoot the money all around the world to different accounts. Maybe some of them land, maybe some of them don't, and then they can kind of pull the money out of the successful transactions. And in this particular instance, unlike a physical bank heist where you might walk away with a few $1,000s, maybe a few $1 million, most of this was unsuccessful, and they still received $81 million.
That's correct. So if you think of a traditional bank robbery, you only get one chance at it, really, at a time. But
unless they're really bad.
Unless they're really bad. But in the cyber heist situation, even in this example of the Bangladeshi kind of central bank heist, there was multiple 30, 40 plus instructions that they kept trying to get through. And so you can think of it almost like a spam.
So in a lot of things that we talk about in this course, and when we talk about ethics, a lot of the decisions about whether or not to do something for a moral reason comes down to this concept of proximity, which we talked about earlier in the course. And in this particular instance, it seems like, let's say you're going to walk into a store and you're going to steal a candy bar. You have to worry about the physical proximity of walking past the person and the psychological pressure of going against kind of these societal rules. But in this particular instance, you have some guys in some random country somewhere that they're not going to see the outcome. They're not going to understand who they're harming. It's going to be disparate, right? The like opportunity for catching them is very, very low. And as you said, the cost per infraction is minor. So once you figure out the code or the script or whatever necessary to kind of,
you can just keep pinging it.
Just keep doing it over and over and over again. And then if something hits, you could get $81 million.
And to your point, because of that, in the situation that you explained, because of the distance, geographic distance that you have from the location of the crime to where this person might be, it removes that kind of connection of humanity, which then makes it easier to perpetrate certain illicit activities.
So that then brings up another question, because it's not just the psychology of moral decision-making, but it's also the very practical elements of enforcing the laws. And I mean, it must be that it's incredibly hard as fintech gets better and more efficient. If the criminals get better and more efficient with the utilization of fintech, it's got to be harder for enforcement of these rules.
That's right, and that's absolutely correct. So one of the large initiatives that many nation states, many governments are trying to roll out now is kind of the cybersecurity cooperation. So between countries, because the nature of like what you described, it could be criminal activities, it could be other forms of access to data that we may want to control. It's very difficult to coordinate information investigations as well as prosecute people who are potentially doing wrong. So even in this Bangladeshi kind of this bank heist situation, the Bangladesh was involved, the United States was involved, the Philippines was involved, Sri Lanka was involved. And so because of this kind of transnational aspect of this, it's very difficult for particular single nation states to deal with that alone. So there's been a lot of movement towards cybersecurity partnerships and alliances amongst countries in order to try to help manage this problem.